We can now bring in Christophe Lemoine, spokesperson for the French Foreign Ministry. Thank you so much for joining us on the program today. I want to start with the latest. What is France's reaction to Israel targeting the Evin prison in Tehran, where we know government dissidents are imprisoned there and French nationals are being detained there? What is Paris's reaction?
Well, indeed, there are two French hostages that are held in the Evin prison, and of course, the strikes on that prison are very worrying for us, and we're very concerned about the fate of our the two French citizens that are held here. It's a priority for us to obtain their release, and that's what the President Macron said to his Iranian counterpart when they talked this weekend. There must be a release of those two persons that are innocent, and we are fully in contact with their families. And we follow the situation very closely. But of course, the situation makes their fate more worrying today.
Air France says it's suspending flights to Tel Aviv until the 14th of July. What plans are being put in place to bring back French citizens in Israel and also French citizens in Iran?
Well, the ministry and particularly the crisis center have thought through a plan to allow the French people being in Israel for those who want on a voluntary basis to return to Paris, and there are two ways that are active. A way that is already active, which is commercial flights from Amman in Jordan to Paris, and the first flight arrived yesterday in Paris, and there will be another one today, and there will be another one tomorrow. So this is the first option and the most convenient option for those who can reach Amman. And we are planning, and that's the second mean that we're deploying. We are planning to have military planes rotating from Tel Aviv to Cyprus for those that are in a particular situation of vulnerability. But with all those flights are depending on Israeli authorization, because the airspace is closed. And so we have to get a special clearance from the Israeli authorities. But as soon as we'll have the clearance, we'll be launching those flights.
Last Friday, there were hopes that there still could be a diplomatic solution to this conflict. The French foreign minister, along with the British and the German foreign minister, and the EU foreign policy chief met in Geneva with Iran's foreign minister. What can you tell us about the proposals that were put forward to the Iranians? Because Tehran said those were unacceptable.
Well, the point is there is no military solution to this nuclear crisis. And I think that's what the President of the Republic expressed. And we are fully convinced that there is no way out uniquely on a military basis. So the point is to restart negotiation, to resume negotiation, to bring people back to the table. What was done in Geneva last Friday was the first attempt from the E3, those three European countries, to re-engage with Iran, to restart the negotiation, because we are fully convinced that there cannot be any other solution than a diplomatic solution. And history shows that you cannot reach a sustainable and durable solution only with strikes and military operations. So that's what we're trying to re-engage, and that's what precisely Minister Barrot just announced when he was in Brussels today for the Council.
Was Paris notified about the U.S. strikes on Iran?
Well, no, we
Found out like the rest of us.
No, it's just that the United States decided to launch those strikes, and we were not involved in the planning, and we were not involved into the strikes themselves.
Germany's Chancellor Merz has said there's no reason to criticize the U.S. strikes in Iran. I'm curious, what is France's position on the U.S.'s strikes on Iran?
Well, again, I think France's position is very clear. The French position, and that's what the President of the Republic have said from the beginning, from the first strikes on Israel and Iran. This creates a situation of escalation, which is very dangerous for the region, for those two countries, and that doesn't offer the proper framework for a sustainable solution and for a durable solution. So strikes are no use for a long-term and a long-lasting solution.
Last week, when the G7 wrapped up, Emmanuel Macron was asked about the possibility of regime change, and he spoke and he cited the examples we've seen in Libya, for instance. Now, following the U.S. strikes, we had the U.S. President Donald Trump, who said he put out a post last night on Truth Social talking about using the opportunity to make Iran great again, and if not, regime change. This is something the Israelis too have been toying with. What is France's position still? Vehemently opposed to any attempt to force regime change in the country, even though that striking the gates of Evin prison by the Israelis could be some sort of way to achieve that?
Well, the position of the president was clear, and he said, on the longer perspective, you never reach a good regime change through exterior military operations. And he said it's always a strategic mistake. And I don't think what happened in the last days changed this. Again, on a long-term perspective, history shows that it's never a good idea. So the thing is, today, the main point with Iran is the nuclear program. That's the main issue, and that's an issue that should be tackled correctly through the negotiation, through a diplomatic work, and that's the main central issue.
Following from those discussions this past Friday, did the French foreign minister get a sense that the Iranians would be willing to return back to the negotiating table with the Europeans?
Well, that's what the Iranian foreign ministry did last Friday. He re-engaged in a negotiation with the three Europeans plus the EU High Representative. That's what happened in Geneva last Friday, and that was the first attempt. That was the kickoff to restart the negotiation, to resume the negotiations, and that happened in Geneva. So of course, restarting negotiation it can be complicated because the situation has changed, and it has changed because of the strike of Israel on Iran, but it has also changed because of the behavior of Iran. But the main point is to resume the negotiation, and that happened in Geneva last Friday.
But the calculus has also changed because of the U.S. strikes.
Of course, but it doesn't refrain from keeping on promoting and advocating a diplomatic solution.
Okay, so Paris still hopes that a diplomatic solution can be reached. Christophe, I have you here. Final question, and it's an important one, because as this war rages between Israel and Iran, and now the U.S. has gotten involved, we have the situation on the ground in Gaza that continues. Last month, we had the French president who went on television, and he said that what's happening in Gaza, Netanyahu's policy, was shameful and unacceptable. These are the French president's words. Paris has been saying that they could mull some sort of action against Israel to pressure. We've seen how aid is being distributed now in Gaza. It's the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation, this opaque, U.S.-backed private company, essentially, that is distributing aid every single day. There have been security issues. What is France's position? What is France doing to realistically pressure the Israeli government to get aid into Gaza in a proper and humane way?
Well, French stance on this hasn't changed. And of course, there might be less of Gaza at the moment because the situation has changed with the strikes of Israel on Iran. But the situation on the ground in Gaza is still horrendous. There are still problems. There are still, humanitarian issues that are huge and that should be tackled. And what President Macron said a few weeks ago is still completely valid. We were supposed to organize this two-state conference in New York in June. This had to be postponed because, of course, there is no way having a conference on Palestine without President Abbas, who couldn't leave Israel. So this conference is postponed, but this conference will take place because on this issue, again, there is a need to find a political solution. This is the only way out to offer both Palestinian and Israelis a safe and sure framework and a safe and sure situation where they could live. They can live next to each other. Again, on Gaza, there is no military solution. That doesn't make sense. So the stance of France hasn't changed. We're still very, we want to organize this conference that we co-chair with Saudi Arabia. It's just postponed, but it will take place.
But that conference is not going to, unfortunately, improve the humanitarian situation on the ground.
That is a whole package. There is, when considering Gaza, there's a need of a ceasefire. There's a need of a liberation of the hostages. There's a need of free access to humanitarian aid to Gaza, and that those are the first steps that should be accomplished. And then there should be a discussion on a diplomatic solution and on a political solution that would lead to a two-state solution.
Christophe Lemoine, thank you so much.
Thank you very much.